No one in the village could explain where the horse came from, and that was the first thing that made people uneasy. It appeared at the edge of the forest just before sunrise, silent, unmoving, like it had always been there. No hoof prints. No sound. Just a tall, dark figure standing in the mist, watching. And then, without warning, it turned and walked into the fog. That should have been the end of it. But one boy decided to follow. His name was Iron, a quiet, sharp-eyed boy who had always noticed things others ignored. While the villagers whispered from a distance and shut their doors tighter, Iron stood still, staring at the horse as if something inside him had been called. Because this wasn't just any horse. It didn't flinch at noise. It didn't react to movement. Even when a group of men approached it cautiously the day before, trying to rope it or scare it away, the horse didn't run. It simply looked at them. Not wild. Not tame. Something else entirely. And now, as it disappeared into the mist-covered forest beyond the village, something pulled at Iron's chest. Curiosity, or maybe something deeper. He didn't tell anyone when he stepped forward. Didn't call out. Didn't hesitate. He just followed. The forest swallowed sound almost immediately. The further Iron walked, the quieter the world became. The usual rustling of leaves, distant birds, even the wind, it all faded into an eerie stillness. Only the faint outline of the horse guided him. Its dark shape moved steadily ahead, never rushing, never slowing, as if it knew exactly where it was going and expected him to keep up. Iron! A voice echoed faintly behind him, but he didn't turn. That voice belonged to Kareem. And Kareem had already made up his mind about the horse. Kareem was the village's only horse handler. A man who had spent his entire life working with animals, training them, calming them, understanding them. But this horse, it unsettled him. Not because it was aggressive, but because it wasn't. It's wrong, he had told the others the night before. No animal stands that still unless it's either broken or hiding something. The villagers trusted Kareem. He had raised half their livestock, saved injured animals, and even helped rebuild the village after a harsh winter years ago. But there was something else about him too, something quieter. A grief he never spoke about. A horse he once lost. And when Kareem saw Iron walking toward the forest that morning, following that silent creature, something inside him snapped. So he ran after him. Iron! Stop! The boy finally slowed, but didn't turn fully. You shouldn't be here, Kareem said, catching up, breath heavy. Iron's eyes stayed fixed ahead. It's waiting, he said softly. Kareem frowned. What? The horse, it's not running away. Kareem followed his gaze, and there it was. Still ahead. Still moving. Still silent. And somehow, closer than it should have been. That's when Kareem felt it too. That strange pull. That quiet tension in the air. Like the forest itself was holding its breath. Stay behind me, Kareem muttered. But Iron didn't respond. Because something had changed. The horse had stopped. For the first time since they entered the forest, it stood completely still again. Its back to them. Its head slightly lowered. Waiting. Iron stepped forward. Carefully. Slowly. Each step crunching softly against damp leaves and stones. Kareem reached out to grab him, but paused. Because the horse didn't react. Didn't twitch. Didn't turn. It simply stood there, allowing the distance to close. Don't, Kareem whispered. But Iron kept going. Something about the horse felt familiar to him. Not safe, but not dangerous either. Just unfinished. And then, just as Iron got close enough to see the details, the tension in its muscles, the slight shimmer of moisture along its coat, the horse moved again. But not forward. It turned. Slowly. Deliberately. And for the first time, they saw its eyes. Kareem froze. Because he had seen that look before. Years ago. In another horse. One he had failed. Iron didn't understand why Kareem suddenly went silent. But he felt it. The shift. The weight of something unspoken. The horse looked at them both, not with fear, not with anger, but with something that felt almost human. Recognition. And then it did something no one expected. It stepped closer. Not away. Closer. Toward Iron. The horse didn't hesitate. It stepped closer to Iron, then stopped just an arm's length away. Kareem's instinct screamed at him to pull the boy back, to break whatever strange connection was forming, but his body refused to move. Because what he was witnessing didn't make sense. The horse lowered its head slightly. Not in aggression. Not in fear. But in something that looked almost like acknowledgement. Iron slowly raised his hand. The forest felt frozen in time. Even the mist seemed to pause in the air, as if the world itself was watching what would happen next. "Don't touch it," Kareem whispered, his voice tight with tension. But Iron didn't listen. His fingers brushed against the horse's neck. And for a split second, nothing happened. Then the horse exhaled. A deep, heavy breath, warm and alive. And just like that, something shifted. Not just in the horse, but in Kareem. Because he had seen this before. Long ago. Before everything went wrong. Before the night he lost the one horse he had sworn to protect. "Iron, step back," Kareem said again, more urgently now. But the boy's eyes were fixed on something beyond the horse. Something deeper in the forest. "It wants us to follow," Iron said quietly. Kareem's jaw tightened. "Or it's leading us somewhere we shouldn't go." Iron shook his head slowly. "No, it's showing us something." The horse turned again. And this time, it didn't wait. It began walking deeper into the mist, slower than before, as if making sure they could keep up. Iron followed instantly. Kareem hesitated. Every instinct told him to turn back. But something stronger kept him there. Something unresolved. Something buried. And with a heavy breath, he followed too. The forest changed the deeper they went. The trees grew taller, older, twisted in strange shapes as if time had forgotten them. The light dimmed, filtered through layers of fog that clung to the ground like a living thing. And then, the symbols appeared. At first, Iron thought they were just markings on rocks. Scratches. Moss patterns. Natural formations. But as they walked further, he realized they weren't random. They were deliberate. Carved. And faintly glowing. "What is this place?" Kareem muttered under his breath. He knelt beside one of the stones, brushing away dirt and moss. The symbol beneath it pulsed softly in the dim light. And suddenly, his breath caught. Because he recognized it. "No," he whispered. Iron turned. "What is it?" Kareem didn't answer right away. His hands trembled slightly as he traced the edges of the carving. "This mark," he said slowly. "I've seen it before." Iron's eyes widened. "Where?" Kareem hesitated. And for the first time, the walls he had built around his past began to crack. "There was a horse," he said quietly. "Years ago. The strongest I'd ever trained. Smarter than any animal I'd known." Iron listened closely, his curiosity now mixed with something deeper, something emotional. "What happened to it?" he asked. Kareem's eyes darkened. "I lost it." The words hung heavy in the air. "The night it disappeared. I found markings like these. Deep in the woods." He stood slowly, looking around at the forest that now felt far too familiar. "I thought I imagined it, or maybe I just didn't want to believe what I saw." Iron's voice softened. "You think this is connected?" Kareem looked ahead. At the horse. Still walking. Still leading them forward. "I don't know," he said. "But I don't like it." As if hearing them, the horse stopped again. This time near a clearing. The mist here was thicker, swirling unnaturally, almost like it was being pulled inward. Iron felt it immediately. That same pull from before, but stronger now. Like something was calling him. "Stay back," Kareem said firmly, stepping in front of him. But Iron moved around him. Because now he could see it. Hidden beyond the fog. A structure. Old. Broken. Half buried in the earth. "What is that?" Iron whispered. Kareem's face went pale. Because he knew. Or at least, he thought he did. Years ago, there had been rumors. Stories of an abandoned place deep in the forest. A stable that had burned down under strange circumstances. Animals lost. People missing. And something no one ever dared to fully explain. It can't be, Kareem muttered. But it was. The horse stepped toward the structure. Then stopped. Waiting again. Ian took a step forward. Then another. The ground beneath his feet felt different here, softer, uneven, as if something lay buried just below the surface. And then, he heard it. A sound. Faint. Weak. But real. Did you hear that? Ian whispered. Kareem's eyes widened. Because he heard it too. A whimper. Not from the horse. From inside the ruins. The air grew heavier. The silence shattered. And suddenly, this wasn't just about a mysterious horse anymore. Something was inside. Alive. Kareem grabbed Ian's arm. We're leaving. But Ian pulled away. No, he said firmly. Something needs help. The horse stood still beside them, watching. And for the first time, Kareem realized something terrifying. This wasn't random. The horse hadn't led them here by accident. It had brought them here on purpose. If you think this is where the story peaks, it's not even close. Because what they're about to find inside those ruins is something no one in the village was ever supposed to see again. And when the truth comes out, everything will change. Ian didn't wait this time. He pushed forward into the crumbling ruins, the fog curling around his legs like it was trying to pull him back, but he kept moving, guided by that faint, desperate sound echoing from somewhere beneath the broken structure, while Kareem followed close behind, his heart pounding not just from fear, but from recognition, because every step they took felt like walking back into a memory he had spent years trying to bury. The wooden beams were charred and splintered, the ground uneven and soft as if something beneath had shifted long ago, and then Ian saw it, a partially collapsed section of flooring, just wide enough to reveal darkness below, and from that darkness came the sound again, weaker now, trembling, alive. There's something down there, Ian said urgently, dropping to his knees and brushing away debris, ignoring Kareem's sharp warning to stay back. Because in that moment nothing mattered except the life hidden beneath, and when the opening widened, just enough, Ian carefully lowered himself down, the air below colder, heavier, filled with the scent of damp earth and something else, something older, while Kareem hesitated above for only a second before following, unable to let the boy face whatever waited alone. When their feet touched the ground below, the space revealed itself, a hidden chamber, partially intact despite the ruin above. Its walls marked with the same faintly glowing symbols they had seen outside, but here they were. Clearer, stronger, pulsing like a heartbeat, and in the far corner, barely visible in the dim light, was a shape, a small horse, trembling, its body thin, its legs weak, trapped beneath fallen wood, its eyes wide with fear yet somehow still holding on, and Ian rushed toward it without hesitation, whispering softly as he approached, his voice calm despite the urgency, while Kareem froze in place, his breath catching in his throat as the past slammed into him all at once, because this wasn't just any place. This was the stable he had lost years ago, the one that had burned in the night, the one where he had failed to save a horse that trusted him completely, the one that had vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but ash, guilt, and unanswered questions. It's okay, Ian murmured to the trapped horse, gently reaching out, but the moment his hand touched its side, the symbols on the walls flared brighter, the air vibrating with a low hum that made Kareem stumble back in shock. And suddenly the chamber didn't feel abandoned anymore. It felt awake, aware, watching them, and that's when Kareem saw it, not just the injured horse, but the markings surrounding it, forming a pattern he now understood too late, a boundary, a seal, something meant to hold something in or perhaps keep something from being forgotten, and his voice broke as he stepped forward. This place, it was never just a stable, he said, realization flooding in. It was used for something else. But before he could say more, the ground shifted beneath them, a deep cracking sound echoing through the chamber as dust rained down from above, and the trapped horse let out a weak cry that cut through everything, snapping Ian back to the moment as he struggled to lift the debris pinning it down, refusing to leave it behind, while Kareem forced himself past his fear and guilt, rushing to help, his hands shaking as he grasped the broken wood, because this time he wouldn't fail. Not again, not when he had a chance to make it right. Together they pulled, straining against the weight until finally the beam shifted just enough for the small horse to pull free, collapsing weakly against Iron, who held it steady, whispering reassurances. But the moment it was free, the glowing symbols surged once more, brighter than before, and then, suddenly, everything went still, the light fading, the hum dying out, the chamber falling silent as if something had just been released or completed, and above them, faint but unmistakable, they heard movement. The sound of hooves stepping across the broken ground of the ruins, slow, deliberate, and when Kareem looked up toward the opening, his blood ran cold, because he knew exactly who was waiting for them above, and for the first time since this began, he understood the truth. The silent horse hadn't just led them here to rescue something. It had brought them to finish something that had been left undone for years. Something tied to his past, his failure. And whatever secret this place had been hiding, and now that the trapped horse was free, there was only one question left. What did the silent horse want in return? When Iron finally managed to steady the rescued horse and Kareem helped guide it toward the opening above, the air shifted again, this time heavier, charged with something final, and as they climbed out of the broken chamber, the mist parted just enough to reveal the silent horse standing exactly where they had left it, unmoving, watching, its presence now impossible to ignore, not just as a guide but as something far more intentional. And Kareem felt his chest tighten because the moment he locked eyes with it, the truth hit him with a force he could no longer deny. This wasn't just any horse, and this wasn't just coincidence. This was connected to the one he had lost, the one he had abandoned in the chaos of that fire years ago, the one whose terrified eyes had haunted his sleep ever since, and suddenly the memories came rushing back in brutal clarity. The flame spreading too fast, the panicked animals, the collapsing beams, and that one horse trapped deeper inside while he chose to save the others first, promising himself he would come back, only to be forced out as the structure gave way, leaving that promise broken, buried under ash and guilt, and now, standing in front of him, was the consequence of that moment, staring at him not with anger but with something far worse, expectation. Iron, still holding the weak horse beside him, looked between Kareem and the silent one, sensing the weight of something unspoken. "You know this horse," he said quietly, and Kareem's voice trembled as he answered, "I think it knows me," and as if confirming it, the silent horse stepped forward, slow and deliberate, until it stood only a few feet away, its gaze never leaving Kareem, and for the first time, Kareem didn't look away, because he couldn't, not anymore. The forest fell completely silent, no wind, no birds, just that heavy stillness pressing in as if the world itself was waiting for what he would do next. And then the ground beneath them shifted slightly, a low rumble echoing from the ruins behind as cracks spread through the already fragile structure, threatening to collapse entirely, forcing Iron to pull the rescued horse back in alarm. "We have to leave, now," he urged, but Kareem didn't move, because he finally understood. This wasn't just about saving the trapped horse, that was only part of it. This was about something unfinished, something that had tied this place, this horse, and his past together for years, waiting for this exact moment. The silent horse turned its head slightly toward the ruins, then back to Kareem, and in that simple motion, the message was clear. It wasn't asking, it was giving him a choice, one last chance to face what he had run from, and Kareem's heart pounded as he stepped forward, past Iron, past the safety of leaving, toward the crumbling remains, because deep down he knew that if he walked away again, whatever this was would never end. And as he reached the edge of the ruins, the ground gave way further, opening a deeper section beneath where the fire had burned hottest, revealing something hidden beneath layers of ash and time, a skeletal frame, unmistakably that of a horse, partially buried but still intact, the final proof of what he had tried to forget, and Kareem dropped to his knees, the weight of years crashing down on him as he realized the truth he had avoided. He hadn't just lost that horse, he had left it there, and the silence that followed was heavier than any sound, until finally, with shaking hands, he reached forward and touched the remains, his voice breaking as he whispered an apology he had carried for years. "I'm sorry. I should have come back." And in that moment, something changed. The air softened, the tension released, and behind him, Iron felt it too. The shift, like a storm finally passing, and when Kareem looked up again, the silent horse was closer now, standing beside him, no longer distant, no longer waiting, and for the first time since it had appeared, it lowered its head, not in demand, but in acceptance, as if the debt had finally been paid. The past acknowledged, the promise fulfilled, And then, without warning, the light filtering through the mist grew brighter, the fog beginning to lift around them, and the horse stepped back, turning slowly toward the forest, its role complete, leaving behind not fear, not mystery, but something far more powerful, closure. And as Kareem rose to his feet, tears still in his eyes but something lighter in his chest, he understood that this moment wasn't about punishment. It was about being given one last chance to make things right, and this time, he hadn't run. By the time they made their way back to the village, the fog had begun to lift, not just from the forest, but from something much deeper that had lingered over Kareem for years, and though the rescued horse leaned weakly against iron, each step seemed steadier than the last, as if whatever force had held it in that place had finally released its grip. And when the villagers saw them emerge, covered in dirt, eyes heavy with something they couldn't quite explain, and a trembling horse walking beside them, the whispers started immediately, people gathering, questions rising, fear mixing with awe, but Iron didn't speak right away, because some moments don't need explanation, they need to be felt, and Kareem, for the first time in a long while, didn't try to control the narrative or hide the truth. Instead, he stepped forward, placed a hand gently on the rescued horse, and told them everything. The silent horse, the ruins, the hidden chamber, and most importantly, the mistake he had carried for years, his voice steady but raw, not asking for forgiveness, just finally telling the truth, and something unexpected happened in that moment. The villagers didn't turn away, they didn't judge, because they had all seen loss, they had all made choices they wished they could take back, and in Kareem's honesty, they saw something rare, the courage to face it. Over the next few days, the story spread beyond the village, not as a tale of fear, but as something else entirely, something almost sacred. About a horse that returned not for revenge, but for resolution, about a boy who listened when no one else did, and about a man who was given a second chance and didn't waste it, and the rescued horse slowly regained its strength under Kareem's care, though this time, everything was different. There was no force, no pressure, just patience, quiet understanding, and a bond that grew naturally, one built on trust instead of control. And Iron visited every day, not as an owner, not even as a trainer, but as a friend, someone who had followed when it mattered most, and sometimes, in the early mornings, when the mist still clung lightly to the edges of the fields, they would both look toward the forest, half expecting to see that silent figure once more, but it never returned, because it didn't need to. Its purpose had been fulfilled, its presence no longer required, and yet, in a strange way, it was still there, in the quiet moments, in the way the rescued horse would lift its head toward the trees as if remembering, in the way Kareem no longer avoided that part of the forest but walked near it with calm instead of fear, and in the way the village itself felt just a little different, as if something unseen had finally been set right. And if you've stayed with this story until now, you already understand that this was never just about a mysterious horse or a hidden place in the woods, it was about the things we leave behind, the mistakes we carry, and the rare, powerful moments when we're given a chance to face them again, not to erase the past, but to heal from it, and maybe, just maybe, to do better. So if this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, don't forget to share it with someone who needs to hear it, because stories like this remind us that even in silence, even in the mist, something out there might still be guiding us, not toward fear, but toward the truth we've been avoiding, and sometimes, all it takes is the courage to follow.